welcome back to the GSTL. And we have StarTale up against Seoul today, and a pretty intense one coming in here. I think a lot of people expecting big things out of Seoul, and the question is, can they deliver today?
Yeah, will StarTale get HOT6 today, or will they be able to take down the oh-so-strong Zerg player of Team Seoul? Going to be an interesting day. Nearly as interesting as the start of the last K-pop video that we saw there on stream.
Yeah, that was...
It had a good... It started well, but then, I don't know, it took a really interesting turn.
Yeah, when she launched half of her arm at him and the entire top of the building exploded, that's when I had to say, no, thank God the GSTL is starting.
When she hit him for the first time, I was like, okay, this has potential. We can get somewhere with this. And then suddenly, like, the arm thing happened, and also this weird switch from a rooftop where they were beating the hell out of each other, and then suddenly they're in each other's arms. That was like, okay, back to StarCraft.
Yeah, I don't know where the old guy came into the story either.
Yeah, he swapped with the young guy somehow. We don't know how that happened.
But that crazy and very strange video aside, I think everyone is expecting StarTale to take this match today, but like you said, there are some good Zerg players on Seoul, especially HOT6, aka Hiva. No one knows how to pronounce his name.
Yeah, no. Another thing, of course, is that we also have a couple of StarTale players now back in Korea that were just a few days ago in Europe, and I don't know how much they are affected by the jet lag. Starting things off today are two Zerg players, not very surprising since we have Whirlwind being the map that is going to be the starting map.
Yeah, Curious coming out first is, if he loses here in a ZVZ, could be a pretty big dent in the StarTale roster. They usually use Curious. It's not like he's the best player on the roster, but he's a very consistent one. They usually use him at least once if they go all the way.
He's just very solid, and especially in ZVZ, he's pretty strong, and if you know that you're going up on Whirlwind against your first opponent of your opposing team, then usually you will face another Zerg player. Yeah. It's just such a good Zerg map that very few teams will seed anything else.
Exactly. I mean, it's so big, there's so many bases to take, easy to expand all over the map and get extra gas, so that's why Zerg players really oftentimes favor it.
Terran is doing much better on the map than they did since the beginning when it actually just came out, but right now Zergs are still the choice of both teams, so we have a ZVZ in game number 1. When Youngju is going to face Curious here. And StarTale, the last time that they actually played, they played against Zubu, and they lost that match. In the end, it was Supernova who took down Bomber. But first, we have a few match results from the previous week. As you can see, here we have the match between Zubu and FX Open. Zubu took it with a 4-2, even though they were missing their best players.
Yeah, that was a pretty incredible match. Center was able to take the final win against Hurricane, surprising a lot of people. Center's always been a good Terran, but he's been kind of in the shadows while lurking back there training. And he really had his shot up against Hurricane. He took it, he won the game, and FX Open now in a terrible position if you look at the total standings of all the teams.
Yeah, FX Open is currently at -6, and that's definitely not where they want to be. They had big things in mind, but it doesn't really look like they will be able to accomplish it this season if they don't force a turnaround here. They're currently on the last spot with -6 and 2 losses already.
Yeah, basically whoever wins the match today between StarTale and Seoul will move into 3rd place no matter what the score is. Can't, of course, get into a 2-0 position from here with an 0-1 for both teams, but they will kind of solidify their position going forward. And with the indicator system that we have here, you always want to get as many kills as possible. You want to beat your team, you beat your opponent's team the best way you can, so you can get more points.
What we could really see when StarTale was up against the Zubu is that the seeding actually matters quite a lot. If you have a strategy in mind and you can pursue it with the players that you have on the bench, that is really worth quite a lot, and the Zubu showcased that very well against them. Now we have StarTale up against Seoul, and here you can see a detailed breakdown of the two teams.
Yeah, one of the biggest things you can spot right away is that Seoul just does not have a lot of players compared to StarTale. StarTale has more total players that are in qualifying rounds than Seoul has on their team. 4 players in the Premier League, though, shows they do have a lot of talent.
Definitely a lot of talent on the team. On the other hand, we have with StarTale a lot of good players, established players like Curious, like Bomber, for example, but also a couple of players that you could still call newcomers, like Avenge. He actually graced us with his presence in the Challenger League for 2 seasons now, but still one of the players who definitely tries to just leave a mark.
Exactly. Bomber could definitely be the anchor today. Really looking forward to seeing him come out, as well as other players, as you can see listed here. Would love to see Hack today. Definitely, I think Avenge and or Life will be coming out as well.
Life did really well at the DreamHack in Bucharest, and definitely is starting to get back into that position where he wants to be. We could see someone like Balloon. I don't know if he's actually in the studio today, but he's still on the lineup here. He's still in the roster. He could be one of the players that the StarTale coach is going to send out if they have a lead here. There are a lot of players that they can rely upon.
Yep, there's former ZenX coach and current StarTale coach over there on the right side, with Curious, our starting player. And the lineup here, very, very strong. StarTale favored by most to win this season with some of the roster changes we had.
Bomber that you can see on camera here, he started to stream a little bit more regular just recently. If you want to check him out, then definitely have a look at his stream on Twitch. He actually asked me earlier if I can help him a little bit with the setup, because apparently his webcam is giving him some trouble, so he's really trying to improve his stream quality here. On the other hand, we have now the lineup for Seoul.
Yeah, Seoul, a very much smaller team, as you can see here. Having Hwangshin as kind of a mercenary player who does have the ability to step in if he is, of course, here at the studio. Deer, a good player. Sanai, someone who has experience. Trap, and of course Haiva. Such a good lineup of players, even though it's small.
Dia is such an impressive player, and then at the same time you have someone like Haiva in the roster. Haiva is a player who can really just achieve a lot, and he showcased that the last time. He has a pretty predictable style, if you think about it. A very aggressive player who always goes, or nearly always goes, for an early pull. But it works for him. It really works. He forces mistakes of his opponents. He knows exactly how to exploit them. So in this, he's very consistent.
Yeah. I feel like the Seoul that we see here is kind of like Axemacer of last season. Like, Axemacer has grown so much since the beginning, but when you look at, they have a small team that's very close-knit, and I feel like you can almost make that comparison.
Yeah, one of their weaknesses at the same time, though, they are a little bit more predictable when you think about the players that you will have to face. Very few people doubt that someone like Haiva will have to play today. Dia is probably one of the players that we're going to see. So they're a little predictable when it comes down to which players will enter a match and will try to take down an opponent. But besides that, they have, as you already said, like a really small team. They are very close, and they are also in a position where they can beat, I feel, any team.
Yeah, they absolutely could. Now, just looking at the rosters here, both teams looking pretty ready. And StarTale, of course, not bringing everybody today. Only the players they really feel they need. If they brought everybody, they wouldn't have enough room on the bench.
Yeah. And as I mentioned last week, look at those shoes.
Yeah.
Same shoes for Seoul. The sponsor there as well. Curious here, looking good too. He's the opening player today for Team StarTale, up against Youngju, who the last time had to face MMA. And yeah, got a little bit taken apart there.
No. Seoul, of course, repping a new logo, so don't be confused. That Seoul you see in the back is the old one. So they have two logos basically now.
Yeah. For StarTale, there's also quite a lot on the line. If you think about StarTale, you always think about a team that could win this season, but their opening match against Suzubu was not really successful. They lost it. Mama in the last match against Supernova was not able to take it. And this is something that they definitely have to change today. If they want to go straight to the finals, if they want to do really well this season, they need a win right now.
Yep. And they just got to stay focused here. They definitely have the lineup and the players to do it. They just need those wins, because GSTL has shown us time and time again that talent alone and big, awesome rosters can sometimes mean nothing if you can't actually make it happen in the booth when it actually counts.
Could see Hack there on the booth as well, so he's one of the guys that we could see as a Terran player here. Haiva on the left, Allroot, that smirk on his face that we're probably going to see later on today. Avenge and Bomber, the Season 2 champion. Sanae, former NSOSA player here on the Seoul bench. We didn't see him play the last time, but he's always a player that they could send out.
Yeah, definitely true. I feel like Seoul has a really strong Zerg lineup of players, so much flexibility with their Zergs. Something that in the past we didn't really have for StarTale until ZenX merged and we had Life come in to join Curious as kind of the big bosses of StarTale Zergs.
Yeah, but of course going into the match today, the biggest question is who gets the lemon? That's something that we just don't know yet.
You know, we've been studying this. In fact, last time I didn't tell you guys this. You know, for a little while I thought it might actually just be a fake, like a troll that nobody's telling me you can't actually harvest lemon. So I went in the middle of a 5-minute break and harvested the lemon. It does in fact work and return you 500 minerals.
So the first lemon is still out there somewhere, and today we might finally see it harvested.
Yeah, you know, there needs to be an award. In fact, I will congratulate personally whoever gets the first lemon.
I mean, we had MMA kind of with that ceremony, so that kind of counts a little bit, but not all too much. So they still need to do that a little bit better.
Yeah.
A lot of Bomber and Live fans, a lot of StarTale fans that we currently have in the studio. Welcome, everybody.
Yeah, welcome to the studio. Thanks for coming down. Entrance is free, of course, here. So if you're in Seoul or you're planning on coming to Seoul and you know there's going to be a match coming up, definitely come down to the studio, say hi. You can put your headsets on, listen to us in English. So
yeah, weather's getting a lot better these days in Korea once again. Root for root. Here we go.
Yeah.
Yeah, no Yu-Gi-Oh! This time, unfortunately, but that's someone that we might see again in the Challenger League.
Yeah, definitely true. Challenge League qualifiers are coming up pretty soon, so I'm excited for that. See who gets in this season.
And I'm pretty sure if Katz is watching, he'll approve.
He would probably approve, you know. You bring a root shirt all the way to Korea, that's pretty awesome.
Yeah, he's going to like that. But yeah, today we are actually expecting a really interesting match. We have seen that Live is also in the studio. StarTale didn't bring all of their players, but with Hack, with Avenge, with Bomber, Live, Curious, we have a very intense lineup that they could rely upon here, depending on how things go. And of course, with the smaller lineup that we see for Seoul, we kind of... I mean, Dia is one of the players that we will see today. If they need all 4 players, we will most likely see Haiva. I could see Trapped again today. Yeah. Maybe Sanai. Depends a little bit on how the matches go, what kind of race they need, what kind of matchup they are aiming for. But our opening matchup, as we mentioned earlier, is going to be the Zerg versus Zerg, since Curious is going to be the starting player here on Whirlwind for Team StarTale.
As you can see in all GSTLs, Wings of Liberty and Heart of the Storm, he's come out 38 times in total. And he's in the Challenger League currently. He's known as the Gatekeeper because usually you have to beat this guy to get into Codes. But Curious is definitely by far the favorite to win this CVZ. He's just the more experienced player. And his opponent, Youngju, has played only one time here in the studio, and he got crushed by MMA. He looked a little bit nervous, a little bit off his game.
You could really see that he just had a lot of trouble with the multitasking. He was very focused on the Hellion pressure that MMA executed against him, but he fell victim to a very standard job. Kind of panicked a little bit and sent all his units into the main base to defend, and then his natural and his third base were attacked really rapidly by MMA's Hellions. So MMA, with the experience that he had, definitely overwhelmed Youngju here, but you can see that the Seoul coach is still banking his hopes on his starting player here. And being the starting player for a team always allows you to prepare specifically the map and for the matchup, since you know the map and your opponent a few days in advance.
Yeah, so this is probably, if I had to expect, I would expect a more aggressive strategy coming out of Youngju here, just because Curious has more experience, and if you give him the time to get to the mid-game, he's probably going to play better than you in these environments.
It's ZVZ on the other hand, so anything can happen. The opening, of course, going to be really important here. One of the players is going to be aggressive. I actually expect Youngju to be the one, even though Curious has shown a couple of early pools in the past. But if you're on the same team as Haiva, you have to... I mean, that's a certain quota you have to fulfill.
Exactly. I feel like Curious is going to play defensively and safe here, knowing that he's the player who has more experience, especially here in this studio and this booth. And in StarCraft 2 in general, he's been playing for longer.
The Zerg versus Zerg is also a matchup where he has quite a lot of experience and also success, especially in Heart of the Swarm. 60% win ratio. We're going to go a little bit more into detail just later on, but let's now jump into game number 1 here, the GSTL Season 2 2013. StarTale is up against Seoul, and we are hopping into a Zerg versus Zerg with Curious going up against Youngju. Last time had to face MMA and lost the match, but now he's up against a fellow Zerg player, so let's see if he can deliver the first point for Team Seoul at the GSTL. Colin Wolf.
When I step to the fore, bringing you that fuel source fresh from the core. Right mind, fitting strong, fuel like iodine. With blueprints, these huge quotes that my mind designed.
Starting to the bottom right of Whirlwind, we have the StarTale player. It is, of course,
StarTale, Curious.
So much experience in the matchup.
Very, very accomplished player. Has been in the Premier League several times. He has a 60% win ratio against Zerg. And starting to the bottom left is his opponent. Starting for Team Seoul, we have
Seoul, Youngju.
And so far, no early pools.
Yeah, no early pools. And for Youngju, we mentioned it before, he doesn't have that much experience. He already just played the first game the last week in the studio here at GOMTV. But also, if you just look at his ZVZ record, and from Norway.
Yeah, welcome.
Welcome to Korea.
And also, thanks for loving StarCraft.
I'm pretty sure they were in the cafe earlier.
You know, that may have been them, yeah.
Yeah, we have a couple of cafes around the area here where we usually meet up before the show and just talk a little bit about the matchup and also like the games in general. And I'm pretty sure that they were in there for a second. But yeah, as I was about to say, like in the ZVZ, we actually don't have too much for Youngju. He only played a single best of 1, and that is already like nearly 5 months ago, where he played against Czech. He won that match, but that's the only game that he has played in a ZVZ. Whereas Curious, on the other hand, with 20 maps played, has a 60% win ratio, and of course he was also active in Wings of Liberty. That gives him a huge experience bonus here over his opponent.
Yeah, he's played so many games in all matchups, really. I mean, when it comes to just how little Youngjun has the experience in this game and in this booth, Curious is just miles and miles ahead. And both players actually going for really early hatches here, and both getting a pretty early scout of where their opponents are spawned. I think that we're going to see a longer game than I expected, because I thought that Youngjun was going to put the pressure on right away and never stop, but as it is, they both know that it's a passive game, so sometimes ZVZ comes into a game of risks in this type of scenario. Who takes the gas first, who gets the Roach-born first, and who makes more drones.
With the opening that we have here, you can see that right now no player is really mining gas, so it looks like a more late-game oriented game that we're going to see here. And this is one of the matches and one of the maps you will eventually see that baneling as just as a safety precaution, even if you don't want to be aggressive. A couple of builds and maps allow you to go straight into roaches, and more and more players are actually trying to do exactly that. Going straight into the roaches, skipping the baneling nest a little bit, sometimes even skipping the speed. But usually if you want to play safe, especially on a map like when you're going into your baneling nest yourself. But in this kind of meta, what we are probably going to see are roaches and then Hydralisk, like the standard play that you already saw in Wings of Liberty a lot.
Yeah, I expect so too. In these positions, mutas can be good, but they can also be really bad, just depending on what your opponent decides to do. So it's all going to be about the scouting. Speaking of which, Lynx try to get in the main base here. No dice, though. Gets taken out, and he doesn't know if gas is taken now.
Yeah, Youngju actually did a really good job here. Very, very nice scout deny. Had the queens in the perfect positions and was also just waiting with a couple of Zerglings. On the other hand, now he's going to take his double gas right away. And let's see what he's going to do with that. There's actually a lot of gas income. He can go straight into speed, but he could also just favor fast attack.
With the Spinecrawler going down for Curious at the front, he's getting a little bit of extra safety. But this is partially because he doesn't know if his opponent has gas or not. So Youngju has this advantage of forcing a Spinecrawler, and also he may even get this Overlord.
Yeah, he will definitely get the Overlord. And the only thing that you do is you risk your queens a little bit if your opponent goes for a really fast speed and starts to attack with a couple of Zerglings and Speedlings. But that's the risk that Youngju is absolutely willing to take here, and he gets rewarded. He already tried to scout a little bit earlier to make sure that there is no fast gas, and he gets the Overlord. That supply blocks Curious for a little bit. So a pretty good snipe here by the Soul player.
Yeah, he also has Overlords in position, letting him know there's no Lynx coming across the map right now, so just really safe play overall by him, and he's even going to see this Ling coming, deny it. No scout information whatsoever for Curious, and Youngju, he's going for the aggression here, starting 18 Lings, and also getting his lair, so he's going to have to put pressure while he techs a little bit.
Yeah, so what he's going to do here is just put a couple of Lings onto the map, gain the map control, poke a bit at the front, and try to see what exactly Curious has set up, trying to just intimidate his opponent while he goes into the fast attack. Curious, on the other hand, he is going straight into the Roach Run that we talked about earlier, whereas Youngju has all the options of going into Mutalisks. It's something that is, usually you have to transition out of this pretty fast. What you try to do is make sure that your opponent doesn't easily take a third base, because you need to get Spore Crawlers over there to defend against the Mutalisk. But the ground force, that is what really gives the Mutalisk opposing player a lot of dominance.
With so many Lings coming out, he has now 40 Lings, 42.
He's actually hiding them.
Yeah, he's hidden them so well. And if this wall is not tight by any chance, which speaking of which, it's not right now because the queens are off in the middle of the map, can he catch them? No, he's not going to be able to catch them, but he should be able to break through here. Curious has a lot of Lings on his own, though. He has 22.
I don't think he will be able to break through with all the queens and an extra queen already coming in. There are also too many
Transfuses, too.
Yeah, the transfuses. Eventually, the queens would die, but he can't transfuse, and at the same time, he has the Spinecrawler in the back. So that's a really good defense by Curious. You can really see that everything that he did was set up to make sure that nothing can break through this wall, but he is not allowed to move his queens like he did here.
Yeah, if he moves his queens, he's in a bit of trouble, but good transfuses buying a little more time, and actually he saves both of them. But the Spire is on the way.
That was pretty clutch, though.
Yeah, that was really nicely done, and really scary for him for just a moment there.
And now we have the scenario that we talked a little bit about earlier. Curious is going into that style where he heads into the roaches, and on the other hand, we have the Spire attack for his opponent. And with Spire, you are trying to take down the Overlords early on. You try to delay a third base, which is already what we are seeing here from Youngju, and maybe even dominate the third and take it out. But if Curious identifies what's going on here, he will be able to set up the Spore Crawlers, and since Heart of the Swarm, and especially since a few of the early patches in the add-on, we have Spore Crawlers with so much extra damage against Mutalisks that you cannot really do too much damage, but at least you have the map control.
Exactly. I like Curious' position a lot if he finds out about the Mutas, because he has such good upgrades coming through here. You can see that the transition is already partially underway here as he gets the +1 with the 7 Mutas. He's getting a third base too. He needs to be able to force a cancel on this base one time though, where I feel like Curious is just going to get an overwhelming amount of roaches and get the Spore Crawlers up that he needs.
But the bigger problem at this point really is that he has no idea about the Mutalisk, and he never really sent an Overseer in his opponent's base. If you see what's going on, then this is an easy thing. You just get your Spore Crawlers out there and it's done. But in this position, it's actually getting really, really dangerous for him. If he does not have enough anti-air when those Mutalisks hit, he could lose a lot.
He makes one for safety here, and now he sees them.
Big problem here with the Overlords. They have no business whatsoever over here. He lost one already, but here come the Zerglings moving in, trying to take down the Queens. Immediately the Mutalisks are there as well, are focusing them down one by one. 2 of them already dead, more coming in from the natural, and finally pushing those Mutalisks back, at least for now.
There's another Spore Crawl on the way here too. He's going to target that down. Once that's gone, he can try to fight the Queens a little bit here. Going to lose a Muta in the process, though not the best trade. A nice cancel there, and he actually saves the drone. And I don't think these Mutas are going to get a ton of damage done here right now. They do give him a little bit of map control. He is transitioning, but the better upgrades already go to Curious here. He's got 1-1.
Curious is definitely the one who has an edge on the ground, but on the other hand, the damage that didn't do too much damage. Like Yongju was really eager to do something, and he sniped 2 Queens, but the problem for him really was that he was at the wrong place. He could have done a little bit more damage in the main base, but of course he did not know that. And by the time he finally killed those 2 Queens, we had Spore Crawlers in the main base at the natural. So now those Mutalisks can't do a whole lot, and that's also the reason why he only got 6 of them.
Yeah. The Infestation Pit here is an interesting choice. He's going to get that out pretty quick. It's going to allow him to fungal and also go into Hive later, much later. But
that's something that Curious kind of has to do. If you're up against Mutalisks, you have a couple of choices. You can either try to go into a play with, for example, Hydralisks, then you're a little bit more vulnerable against Banelink plays. Also, if your opponent tries to overrun you, there are a couple of timings that you could use. If you go into the Infestation Pit, you're planning for the longer game. You can use the fungals against the Mutalisks. So if your opponent overcommits to Mutalisks, you can just chain fungal them. But you're also very well set up if your opponent switches into a very stable ground army.
Upgrade-wise right now, still no armor whatsoever here from Youngju. He doesn't have... I mean, all he has is +1 for roaches. Doesn't have any armor, doesn't have +2 on the way. Whereas Curious is about to have 2-1. He's got the Pathogen Glands on the way. But this attack could be devastating if he gets in the right position.
He's moving in as we speak, and the roach is now coming in for Curious. He has a lot of Queens here. Can really work well against those Mutalisks and is sniping them down one by one. He can also use the Transfuses for his own roaches. There's a lot of energy here on the Queens, and he's doing quite well. But at this point in time, Curious with an overwhelming lead in supply.
Yeah. Curious has to pull the drones, though. A lot of this supply was in army for Youngju, but he barely pushes this back with a few more reinforcements. Good micro, good transfuses, and right now Curious has almost sealed the deal here. He's got the better upgrades, he's got infestors coming out, he keeps the third base, keeps his drones alive, and traded really well against the roaches.
Really, really solid performance by Curious so far, and just showcasing his experience in ZVZ. We have Youngju trying to just close the gap here and going for his own second set of upgrades, at least the attack upgrade that is, but Curious is going into Burrow. He already has the Infestors on the way, so he has all the trump cards now. And if he uses that for good timing, he can end it very soon against Youngju. But of course, the Soul player has a couple of chances to come back into the game if Curious makes a few mistakes here.
Yeah, he's down on workers, he's down on upgrades. He is trying to get his Hydraliston out and get that second attack upgrade up, but roach speed here for Curious, very late, but he didn't need it before because he was only defending, he was never attacking.
The army supply alone is in favor of Curious, as you could see just a few seconds ago, and with 3 bases, a very solid economy and the lead in tech, he has a very good position here in this game, and he could move out any second now to just take advantage of this position that he's in at this point.
Yeah.
We have him with the added tech now, going into the Hydra Den as well, just adding the additional damage bust out there.
Yeah.
So something that he could definitely utilize if he wants to wait a little bit longer, but we could see him poke against his opponent's natural or third really soon.
Would like to see a fourth base from Curious pretty soon too. Just, if he makes it down at the 6 o'clock, then he has another place where he can defend and attack from a little bit closer to Curious, or rather to Youngju. And Youngju, on the other hand, if he wanted to, could take a fourth to the north and be much better off with that because it's easier for that to be defended, and it's harder for him to attack forward. It's just different types of bases that you can take in this position. Both players are at the bottom. Given the army advantage that Curious has and also the infestors, I just like to see him take it. Doesn't have to, though. He certainly could just sit back a little bit longer.
He's going to take the 4th now. He maxes out in supply and then he takes an additional base. That way he's also pretty sure that he's not going to be overwhelmed like too fast here. He's already moving out with his army, and at this point he's actually a little bit too hesitant. He could definitely move in, especially since he sees that his opponent is only on 1 attack upgrade. That's going to change very soon, but Curious will still be ahead.
Yeah, and, you know, Youngju's actually going to potentially get this base. No, does not commit. Nice reaction here by Curious. Gets up at the top of the ramp. You can never attack up that ramp, ever.
Yeah, especially against Infestors. That would be a death sentence to him immediately. If he gets chain funneled on that ramp, then everything is just going to die. He's trying to move in here, and that's a mistake. Here comes the first funnel, and now suddenly things are looking really grim for Youngju. The Infestors are trying to escape to the back, but even more funnels are hitting home, and Curious is moving in with the rest of his army.
Youngju made a big mistake here. He thought he could take a risk and maybe get up there first, but Curious was just too fast, too quick, and he had the funnels to back up his army. And at this point, he can actually just go down the ramp and try to finish this off. Decides to play it safe, though, in Remax. You never want to fight against a concave if you can help it, but even had he done it, he would have been in a better position, I feel.
Yeah, he was in a really great position here. He could have done it, but you don't really want to risk it. You know that this first win is quite important for your team's strategy, and that's exactly what he's hoping for here. We see, on the other hand, that he does not get that second armor upgrade, and we have Youngju going into an infestation pit and also an armor upgrade, so that's something where Curious really needs to start using his resources. Getting those upgrades out there, maybe even start his own hive tech. He's already back to 200 supply, so it's definitely something that he can afford.
I mean, just looking at the minerals, he's got 2,300 of them. On the other hand, Youngju has to make more overlords. He lost several on a bad rally over to the south, and every little thing really counts when you're out of money like this. He can't make units, he doesn't have the money to afford overlords. And Curious is continuing his map dominance. You're going to catch some queens for free.
Yep, that was an A move that we saw there by Youngju, and a couple of the queens were suddenly in range and moved around. Here comes the concave, but immediately the funnel's being used, and that helps him quite a lot, trying to get into a better position. Curious is now on the move, still ahead in overall supply, doing a lot of damage against his opponent, but the armor upgrade is not done just yet for Youngju. He is still down 1 upgrade, and Curious is absolutely exploiting this.
He is crushing him here. Finally, the Hydras do break through. A few more infestors at the back. Just kind of tag along here, it looks like. He can maybe snipe the base and get out. 17 Hydra Remax right now for Curious. He will need to get a few more roaches as well because he doesn't really have any of those to soak up the damage, but there's already the GG. Yeah.
Game over, and Curious, he takes the first point for Team StarTale. Youngju playing, I would say, better than he did against MMA the last week, but still, against the experienced ZVZ player, the StarTale team, he didn't stand a chance.
There are a few moments where I liked Youngju's position with his mutas, but Curious just played the safer game. He got his spores up, defended them well, and even life approves here.
Yeah, life approves, and Youngju a little bit sad, but he did his best, and he still lacks the experience. The solo coach knows that as well. But in this scenario, of course, he would have loved his play to take the early win. For StarTale, everything so far going quite well. And now Plan B has to come into play for Seoul.
I feel like they could send out Deer here. Would not be surprised to see him. I don't think we're going to see Hive. I think we'll see Hive last again.
Yeah, I think so too. I mean, in this scenario now, for StarTale, everything is going quite well. And when we talk about Plan B, the one thing that you always know when the starting matches are announced is the starting player of your opponent. So you can always prepare a second player in case your first player loses. And I think this is exactly what we have to see right now from Team Seoul. Curious played really well in the last game, though, and it's always the question, who do you want to send out against him?
Yeah, and that's something that the Seoul coach is going to have to decide here, because it's all about who's feeling good in this matchup right now. And for me, Deer seems like an appropriate choice just because you don't want to send out your super big guns yet, but Deer has shown really creative strategies against Zerg in the past, especially when it comes to late game. So maybe send Deer out on Akalon right now. I like that.
One of the things that he could do is definitely also just try to exploit the weakest matchup of your opponent. And one of the matchups where Curious struggled a little bit more was also the matchup against Terran. But you don't have too much material that you can work with there on the Soul bench. With one single Terran player, there's not a lot that you can do. But Curious in Heart of the Swarm is not really as strong in Zerg versus Protoss as he was in Wings of Liberty. So that's definitely a fair chance that we have here. So there are a couple of options that the Soul coach can choose from, and we're going right into it.
coming out instead, which is a bit of a shock here for me. I don't know. Trap's playstyle in this matchup is a little bit unpredictable, and that could really throw Curious, I guess, for a curveball. I like the choice of using a Protoss, but I would have chosen Deer here.
The thing is, like, they kind of did that last time as well. They first rely on Trap, and then they go and pick Deer next. So maybe that's the idea here. But Deer, I feel, would have been the stronger player in this matchup. But anyways, we're gonna find out if Trap has it in him to take down his opponent. He has a solid win ratio in this matchup. Definitely not a bad choice, but we have a 5-minute break right now, and then we're gonna find out if Trap is good enough to take down Curious and put his team onto the scoreboard here. The GSTL with Colorblind.